Welcome to another episode of Sludge Underground Podcast. I'm Nasipi, Zwane is my surname, and I'm the founder of Sludge Underground. In this episode, I'm going to be chatting to Ash of Lower Hollow. As you all know, Sludge Underground was invited to go do some sludge quickies up in Joburg for the Varken Metal Battle, and I decided to capitalize as someone that doesn't really frequent Johannesburg much to basically arrange a couple of interviews on the side with a few artists from Joburg, and Ash happened to be one of them. Now, you may have seen in recent history that a couple of the members had left the band Lower Hollow, so this is one of the things, or one of the main reasons why I actually hit up Ash to basically find out from the source itself as to what it is that actually went on in this episode. That's one of the things that we'll be talking about. We'll also be talking about the initial incident where a couple of the first members of, or the initial members of Lower Hollow also then left. But that isn't the only thing that we're talking about. We're also looking at the history of the band, some of Ash's ties to Durban, how they're able to tour so frequently in South Africa, and obviously the future of the band, which is really exciting. I think by now you may have seen some of the changes within the band, so Ash just so happened to announce some of those changes right in this episode. And also want to give you a bit of a heads up as well, is that in anticipation of the Varken Metal Battle, I went and got myself a camera. Finally, as you all know, I have been shooting on my cell phone for quite some time, so this was a super exciting time for me. But obviously, having to learn my way around the camera, it sort of bombed out on me 15 minutes into this episode, and my cell phone, which has never ever let me down, also then bombed out around the 7-minute mark. It was just not a good day, but the audio survived, which is pretty awesome. So what you're going to be getting in this episode is, in the initial stages, it's going to be a lot of shots consisting of Ash and I. It will gradually then just be shots of just Ash because my camera was still rolling, and then eventually it's just going to be audio only all the way to the end. Do remember to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you're in the know whenever we drop an episode. Enjoy. Ash, how are you doing today, bro?
Good. Yeah, good.
How far back does the band actually go?
It's about a 3-year-old band. Pretty much started at the sort of back end of COVID when my previous band, Truth and Its Burden, sort of put a hold on everything. And yeah, we, Sean and I, who were from Truth and Its Burden, him and I were like, we were still keen to continue doing stuff. Yeah. And so, yeah, we chatted about it and we were like, okay, cool, let's sort it out. And we did. And, I put out a message on Facebook and stuff to basically recruit guitarist, vocalist, because I was moving over to drums from vocals where I was. That was kind of something that I was primarily, trying to push. And then we obviously recruited guys like Esto. He was the first guy to actually reach out. And, so I had a whole list of influences. And he was kind of like, yeah, cool, I know some of those bands, but I'd dig to do something. And he sent through like a vocal demo and it sounded cool. And so that's kind of where that connection came. And then he brought Carl through as well. They're like best friends and they have been for a very long time. So like they kind of work hand in hand. And then it must have been about, 2-3 months after that fact. I was at a men's fellowship thing because I'm in a church, and
nice.
Yeah, we kind of do things on the occasional Saturday where guys get together and we sort of have a breakfast and chat. And Chad actually ended up coming to one of those breakfasts just by chance. Yeah. And he was like, hey man, I saw you guys play. Like, you're in Truth and Its Burden, and so I was like, yeah, did you play guitar? Like, was we looking for a guitarist? Yeah. And that's how Chad came into the picture. So that's kind of the original lineup that was on Bloom and Expire, and that started the band on our journey.
But I think one of the things that really is a standout is how tight the band really is, man. It's absolutely incredible. And I think, is there someone who does graphic design in the band as well? Because, everything that you guys sort of put up on social media is very, it's hard, bro. Like, it's professional.
Yeah, I mean, so, it goes without saying, but I'll say it because you've asked. The original vision for the band came from my end. Whether that's the sound of the band.
For sure.
We had a couple of, we wanted to do like melodic hardcore. I've always been a fast drummer. That's always been my my sort of key sort of interest, I guess you could say. Yeah. Where I shine. Yeah. Is like the skate punk stuff. But there are bands like Saints Never Surrender, Svalbard, who are from the UK, but they kind of have this atmospheric sort of post black metal influence as well.
Yeah.
Originally, we actually wanted a female vocalist. That was
Okay.
we were open to that, definitely.
Yeah.
And so, all those things kind of were the original vision, and I was always the guy who's doing the graphic design and
Nice.
all the elements within Truth and Asperden, and so really just sort of carried on that,
Yeah.
with what we do here in Lower Hollow. So a lot of what people see in terms of the vision and the ideas that are coming together are really, where it stems from is pretty much all in my head. And I'm sort of like, trying to navigate stuff, around that. So
I feel like one of the things that, bands can take away from what you guys do as Lower Hollow as well is the touring. I'm especially happy that you guys don't exclude Durban, because quite a few people have been excluding Durban. So I'm pretty stoked that you guys always have Durban on the lineup as well. What goes into the touring and stuff? Maybe we can get something we can learn here as, multiple bands are around and they're wanting to tour as well.
a lot of my experience and a lot of the knowledge that I've gained really stems from like what we've done with Truth and Asperden for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And whether that's, promoting shows or booking tours or designing poster artwork or, anything logistical within the band, how you record, the things you focus on in songwriting, whatever it is really, that was like a real training ground for 10 plus years. Obviously apply those things to Lower Hollow from the onset as a band coming out the gates. Like you're a lot more polished, you're a lot more focused, the vision is definitely there from the onset. And I've always, from years ago I was bringing out bands from overseas and booking tours nationwide across South Africa. So I've always been someone who's been super focused on the touring aspect of things, because I believe that's the lifeblood of what a band should be. To perform your art to new people. So
it's very beautiful. And I often see sometimes as well, whenever we often get nostalgic and stuff, and we remember places like the Winston, which often comes up in conversation. And I've always noticed that you have some fond memories of the place. Is there some history that goes back to Durban when it comes to you?
Dude, honestly speaking, I've been doing Durban tours for close on 20 years, I think.
Lovely.
Yeah. Honestly, like the very first time I ever went to Durban with a band was probably a German band that I brought out years ago called Durango 95. They're still like one of my top bands, but I was like super into them and ended up bringing them out to South Africa on this tour. We ended up playing Bern, which was at that time, oh man, it was the worst experience. Not because of any other reason that like we'd booked a show that was like at not a skate park, at a baseball club. Coincidentally named Ashley Sports Club in Ashley. So there you go.
I went to Ashley Primary School, by the way.
There
so
you
I'm
go.
familiar with the place,
So we ended up playing this show, and that ended up really pissing off the guys from Bern. Because it was in a certain kind of radius, but it was an all ages show. Like those were kids going to that show, and it somehow really rubbed those guys up the wrong way, and we ended up getting chased out of the Bern. So that's as long as that goes back, I've been on this mission to do stuff within Durban, and I remember when Truth and Asperden just started out, however many years ago that is, that was like a real good place for us. Like the scene was actually super vibrant. Melodic hardcore was like really, it felt like a home base for us as a band back then. So I've always cared about it, that's for sure.
Yeah, dude, it makes absolute sense. And I think one of the things that's really just important as well, when it comes to you as an individual, obviously we were talking a bit, and you do come through from Benoni. Now there's a lot of misconceptions about Benoni as a place, but you were telling me the loveliest things about the place, So is there a scene in Benoni at all? Are there any venues? Is there anything going on there?
There's a scene in Benoni, but it's certainly not for metal and hardcore and punk rock and stuff like that.
For sure.
It's definitely more of like folk music and stuff like that seems to do well. They do a lot of gin fests and beer fests, and
I see.
tequila fest is happening soon or something. So they do a lot of those kinds of things. More sort of like family orientated things. There's like a lot of sports grounds there, and they tend to kind of do more family orientated things. I've tried my damnedest in recent times to get into venues there, but man, it's a bitch.
Difficult,
Then they're not interested in doing anything heavy. So But it's a great place
Yeah.
to raise a family and to the community and what we have there is it's a great place to be, and I'm stoked that we live there.
Nice one,
That's
bro.
for sure.
Yeah. So, bro, just, we obviously touch a bit on the history, of the band, how the band came together, the scene, Benoni, and so on. I suppose we could probably then transition to what I obviously was speaking about in the initial stages of this interview. We did see the announcements recently, which is one of the things that you actually are very proficient at as well, giving us updates. You're constantly, online doing the thing. And I know that you hate it because we've had those talks. We've had those talks. But you know what? You're still consistent at it and so on. And that is how we then came to know that, some of the guys obviously have recently left. But I want to look at the initial sort of, exodus, for lack of a better word. You did mention, having started the band with Sean being there as well. Shout out to Sean. I believe he's in Raptor Baby now in Sunken States and so on.
Correct.
But what I want to know is, what happened? I think people want to know as well because, as I said, these things are, can often be left up for like interpretation, and people could be wrong, people could be right. So from your perspective, in terms of what was happening within the band, what caused the first, incident where, some of the guys ended up leaving the band?
So, yeah, I mean, I've been very cagey about speaking about this for the longest time. Mainly because when we were first kind of interviewed at the time of releasing Threnody, the album that came after Bloom and Expire, with the new lineup, a lot of the questioning sort of focused on a similar kind of space, and I was cagey about answering the questions because I felt like the guys who'd left Lower Hollow maybe weren't in a position of strength, and anything that I might have said to that could potentially, hurt the guys even more than maybe the way that they felt hurt.
Yes.
Obviously, a lot of that's different now. I mean, the guys have gone on to form a great band, No Closure. Everybody knows them.
Yeah.
Guys are doing super well. And so, yeah, I mean, the headspace is a little bit different around that, but also, I think my heart is in a different place around stuff, One of the big things that I've struggled with a lot is the fact that, people don't actually know what it is that went down. And so, none of what I'm about to say is meant to hurt or incriminate anyone in a bad way.
For sure.
It's actually not that big a story.
Okay.
But I think the fact that people don't know what it is, it's easy to build a big story around it. And that's the part that really sucks. And that's the part that's really impacted Lower Hollow in a very, very negative way.
Yeah.
And when you have guys that are coming on board your new team, for lack of better ways to put it, they're the guys who are being impacted by old history that doesn't actually pertain to them, that isn't such a bad thing. So what I will say about it, and I've spoken about this technical issue in previous interviews where I've said that there was a technical issue with one of the members. The technical issue was quite simply our vocalist Esto wasn't able to sing on time with a lot of the faster parts in the songs. Which is, to some people, oh, that's not such a bad thing. But he's got one incredible voice. He's a monster of a man behind a microphone.
Yeah.
In that situation, he's almost percussive in the way that he sounds in context to a mix. Anybody who's been to see them or seen Lower Hollow during that period would know how heavy this is. When you're sitting behind the drums trying to play the click track, you can take vocals out your ears as much as you like. But that guy's coming through mains. He's coming through every speaker in that room. And it's when someone's off time, and you're meant to be on the offs, and now you're on the ons. If that makes sense musically, you're a drummer. You'll know this. You know, it's soul destroying because it feels like you can't actually gain ground on where you're going with the song. That was something that we struggle with almost from the onset, and there were so many times that I would bring it up and I'd be like, guys, we've got to sort this out, something's not right here. And we'd go through this continuous backwards and forwards kind of thing about it, and nothing was ever done. And it got to a point where it was like I couldn't live with this anymore because I was barreling out of time with everything. And we were constantly sort of fighting, being in time with each other, really in the pocket with each other. And as you sort of pointed out earlier, Lower Hollow is a band that's really focused on being super tight, on really being that band. Like it's something that I really care about, and it's something that impacts everyone in that band.
Yeah, for sure.
So while it's not such a big deal to some people, because well, you guys were cool live or whatever.
Yes.
Like when you're struggling to keep up with what it is that you're quite natural doing, well, not quite natural capable of doing, it ate at the fabric of the things that matter to me is why I play music. I play music to do the best I can at it.
Yeah.
And this thing of being out of time was such a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but it really ate at everything that it stole the joy from the whole thing.
Yeah. Because I was about to ask, like, do you not feel like it's something that could have been? Obviously, you did say you guys were in constant sort of communication about it and constant sort of disagreements and so on. Do you feel like it's something that could have been avoided? Something that could have been worked on long term, or do you feel like it just maybe there were attempts, but it just wasn't getting anywhere?
Oh well, so yeah, I mean, in terms of attempts, like we definitely went through we had serious interventions about it, like group discussions about it. We try to take the sting out of what it was, because if you're in that space and one person is made to feel like they're not good enough,
for sure,
like it can really hinder the process entirely. It can hinder his growth. It can hinder his ability to actually move past that point. So like I'm very aware of like the psychological things, but all of that aside, like if you can't do that thing on time, that's a problem. And so we went through various iterations of trying to sort this out this way, then going that way. At one point, I actually got my wife involved because she's actually a vocal teacher. She studied eurythmics in Sweden, which specifically deals with body rhythm and how you actually translate that to singing and performing an instrument and just performance in general. She got involved with that whole thing for a while, and she was probably about, 3 or 4 weeks of that kind of thing with them. And it just wasn't working out. Now, the thing is this, and I really feel the need to speak about this point. This only happened in the super fast sections of what we were doing. This was not something that was apparent throughout the set. But like the super fast sections would barrel out and then everyone's out of time. You know what I mean? So it like really impacted almost like the fun circle pit moments in our set. You know what I mean? Or opportunity for circle pits. So that was really where like it was like such a struggling point, and I really struggled with it. I think the other guys were like okay with it, but okay with it isn't necessarily the standard that I'm aiming for when I set out the vision for what the band should and can be.
Would that be sort of the reason why you would say maybe Sean also left, and that he was maybe simply okay with what was going on with the vocal situation?
Well, absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely. I mean, like the guys were in a space where, I mean, both Sean and Carl felt very sort of like, well, that's not such a big deal. Like, we're doing well as a band. Like, this is something we can just, overcome with time. Where I was a little bit more sort of like, we've been on this path for several months now. You know what I mean? We've written an album, we've released an album, we're playing shows. We're not getting over this thing. Like
it's still sort of persistent.
It's still a persistent issue. And that was where it was like, that was where I had to draw the line. And I was like, look, I can't do this anymore. I originally was going to leave the band. And I mean, that's no, I don't think that's a secret. I was originally going to leave the band. But then Chad was like, look, dude, like you started this band. Like this needs to be something that like is dealt with, because that's the problem. You leaving the band that you started isn't solving the problem. It's just allowing it to kind of exist. And so that was where we, I'd actually said, I'm probably going to leave the band. And that was kind of what everyone was in mind of. And then at the very last moment, when everything fell apart.
And Chad sort of put things into perspective. You were like, actually, why should I?
Exactly.
I mean, I was there from the onset.
100%. And then that's where dudes pretty much chose their sides, I guess you could say. Sean and I were already in a strained situation because like I'd bring these things to him. We would talk about it a little bit, and then eventually he was like, dude, like don't message me anymore about this. Don't message me anymore. Like I'm not interested in hearing any of this kind of stuff. And we sat through a fair few like weeks, probably months of us just not communicating over anything. He'd arrive at practice, we'd do the thing, we'd do the shows, whatever, but we were in a very strained space.
But the relationship wasn't
100%.
good. No, I think one of the things that obviously is a standout as well, I think just a testament to,
your dedication as well, obviously, in the band. As you were saying now, you had that moment with Chad and you realize, okay, I can't leave the band, as having been one of the people that started. Because you'll find most of the time is that, when a couple of people leave, the band dies out. So I think it's cool for, obviously, with the things that having happened, that Lower Hollow still obviously continued, beyond that, which is something I can definitely commend. I'm not a fan of things falling apart because, all you guys came together to form this thing. And I feel like it shouldn't sort of fall apart because, one or two people have sort of left. So it's cool that you guys have continued, which is absolutely great. And then obviously fast forwarding now to the recent incident where you guys had a Durban show announced as well. And then obviously that had to be cancelled for different reasons. But I saw the announcements as well that, a couple of the guys were leaving, your vocalist, and I believe is it your bassist as well?
So Chad actually left the band.
Okay.
Chad was always, even with the original lineup, Chad was always on his way out. He was looking at immigrating.
Yeah.
And so, he's been in that limbo state for quite some time.
Yeah.
So I think from his point of view, he wanted to write the album, and when the album was done, he was kind of, in his mind, I think they were going to be on a plane. Kind of as soon as the album came out, he was going to be on a plane overseas. Yeah. But they're still waiting for visas to be sort of processed and stuff. So I think it gets to a point where you've been in this limbo state for that long.
Yes.
And I don't know. It felt like he was just not with it anymore.
Yeah.
Which
sort of would make sense with the way that you're explaining it, in that his mind is already.
It's already left,
yeah,
man. You know what I mean?
Left,
so I think that for him was definitely a challenge. Look, it goes without saying, when three guys leave the band, it looks terrible.
Yeah.
There's no way that doesn't look terrible.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were hurt there. I was hurt, they were hurt. It wasn't a pretty thing.
Yeah.
When it eventually came to that point of us actually having the you've got to go, no, you've got to go, no, you've got to go.
Wow. Okay.
It was rough. It was super harsh. Passwords were changed on accounts and weird, kind of, I guess you could say immature things.
Was a bit toxic.
Yeah, for everyone. We were all really shitty to each other at the last moment. And it sucks. No one sets out to start a band and end on those kinds of terms. We've made peace with it, and I'm grateful for that. We've sat down.
Nice.
Carl and Esto and I, we've made peace. Sean and I don't talk as much as I've tried to reach out and make peace and to try and sort of cross a bridge. I think it's just what it is, and I've accepted that now. And I can't change that. But at the end of the day, all these things that have happened, without people knowing what actually happened at the point, they've chosen sides with an understanding of our mates were hurt.
Obviously, Tristan issued out was a statement about work having been the main thing that is sort of holding him back. So would you say that was then an accurate representation of what it?
I think it was partly an accurate representation of the situation.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the bigger reason why when you asked me do you want to do this interview, and I was like, yeah, cool, let's do this, because when guys like Tristan got on board, and even Benji and Ethan, when they got into the band and came onto this project, and they took on the burden of that situation that went down, and that's a heavy load to bear. It just is. I don't know that's something a lot of people would do
for sure
easily. You know what I mean? Not because they don't like you or they don't think that your story is true, but just because they don't like public pressure.
I see.
Do you know what I mean? They don't like to walk into something that already feels like it's a losing game.
Yes.
Nobody likes to do that,
Yeah.
But these dudes did. They all came on and they were like, look, this thing is cool. We really believe in it. I think the pressures of what our band has faced through this has definitely taken its toll on guys like Chad, on guys like Tristan. That's no bones about it. I definitely think when it came to, which band do I need to sacrifice, we were the the last dog at that bowl, and that's fine. He stayed on with Walk These Skies, which is great. But had our road been a little bit less troubled,
Yeah.
I think that would have been a way harder decision for him to make. You know what I mean? And
For sure.
so
Yeah.
my agreement to do this was really just to try and give whoever is with us, whoever goes forward with us,
Yes.
just to sort of be in a little bit more of a free headspace around
I
the
see.
thing, just to
I
sort
see,
of
yeah.
know that, like, well, I've done all I can
Yeah.
to say what it is that it
Yeah.
is.
I
You
think
know?
one thing that people want to know, and obviously we're in the tail end of the chat. I think the people want to know, what does the future hold for Lower Hollow?
It's very different moving forward. Like, it's very different moving forward. There is a vision at play right now that kind of speaks to my original female-fronted scenario. But yeah, my wife has actually taken over vocal duties.
Beautiful.
So that was something that, you know, I've wanted to get her into a musical project with me for a very, very long time.
Okay, yeah.
She's an amazing singer, amazing performer, incredible musician, you know, great songwriter. But it was something that, like, no matter how hard I push for something, you've got to want it for yourself. And every time that we had a setback with, like, a member, you know, whether it was Truth and Burden falling apart, or whether it was, you know, Esto, Carl and Sean leaving the band, she'd
Yeah.
sort of come forward and say, hey, like, I could do this thing.
Yeah.
And then it would kind of feel like, no, maybe she's not ready.
Okay.
But now when Tristan left, literally the moment that Tristan left, she was like, look, let me do this thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I've
Yeah.
seen her smash, like, you know, we do this thing where we play music at night or whatever, like, and like,
Yeah.
I'll put on Comeback Kids Turn It Around album. And dude, she will hit that thing in the lounge like she's on stage as Scott Wade. You know, so like I've seen that kind of, and she's from the OG hardcore scene from Cape Town, Nashamo,
Yes.
you know, Aftertaste, those
For sure.
that era of punk and hardcore. She's from that side, you know, so
Nice.
she understands where I'm coming from. She understands the vision more than probably anyone. You know, your best friend that you've been married to for 10 years should by now know
Yeah.
like how much you give a shit about something, and that's
Definitely.
really where she's come alongside. So it's going to be very different, but like I think this is going to probably be the final resting place
Okay.
of the vision and sound of what this band is. So that's kind of where we're at.
Very beautiful. Ash, I want to just thank you, man, not only for just coming through to the show to talk about you know, everything that went down behind the scenes, but also just traveling all the way from Benoni, bro. We are at the at Sludge today, and it's obviously the Vakken, you know, Metal Fest is going on. So I really appreciate you actually coming here, bro. I really appreciate this.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and yeah. So just for anyone who wants to continue following, you know, Lower Hollow, what's your social media handles and so on for them?
I think it's like Lower Hollow Hardcore or HC
Okay.
for Instagram, and yeah, we got a website, lowerhollowhc.com.
Nice.
So yeah, everything's there.
Is there.
Yeah, it's kind of the vibe.
Awesome, guys. And obviously, Sludge Underground, we have our website, www.sludgeunderground.com. If you do want to get some merch, we are at sludgeunderground.store. Do check that out. It's the best way to support the show. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope that you've gotten some insight. And we're definitely going to be coming back with some more episodes. And we hope to see you guys next time. As for myself, it's at Zwane031 on social media. And yeah, guys, catch me doing the Sludge things. Catch Marcel doing the Sludge things. And we'll catch you guys next time. It is bye for now.